Welcome back to the Cricket Matters podcast. Today we're talking about cricketers suffering from back spasms and what is the possible solution. Because we've had this come up a few times recently, haven't we? A few clients have had back spasms, and who are you going to call someone out, was it?
Yeah, I'm going to call out myself to start off with.
Oh yeah, you had a back spasm, didn't you?
I had a back spasm, which I helped recently. It was putting on a pair of socks. It was going to cricket, and I had to get myself out of it. And also, it was, I think, Sam Everson, who's listening into the podcast, hopefully can hear this as well, because once he got back spasm, he's got a tight back, and then he's got a slight groin pull, which is all part of the same system we want to talk about today. So, back spasms. Now, back injuries are kind of rife in cricket. Yeah. In fast bowling, and that's like stress fractures.
In life, I would say. Never mind cricket.
Absolutely. Now, we're not talking about back stress fractures. That's a completely different thing altogether. And that's the thing that's the hot topic for fast bowlers in the professional game. What we're talking about is the general back spasm. What is it? What causes it? What happens? What do I do to get out of it? Because it's crippling, right? Back spasms are the reason the reason I fell into the fitness industry. I was having back spasms all the time when I was in the police. Couldn't fix it. I had to find a way to get out myself, and that's what happened. So there's a couple of reasons, and there's multiple reasons why, but on a whole, right, it's down to your lateral subsystem. Don't worry about terminology just yet, okay? So in a nutshell, there's a muscle in your body called the QL, the quadratus lumboris, or lumborum if you want to call it specifically by its name. And it's a muscle on the side of your body. You can touch it usually around the fatty bit on the side where the love handles are, okay? Let's just go around that area there. Now, if that muscle gets overworked for a variety of different reasons, namely the opposite side QL isn't doing its function, or more importantly, the opposite side glute and inner leg isn't doing its function, it gets grumpy, it gets pissed off, it therefore goes into spasm. And that's why you can't move. That's why you have that shooting pain. You can't move. The body's gone into protection mode because that QL has gone, nope, I've had enough, I'm out, I'm done. Okay?
Yep.
That's a really important thing to look at. So, for example, I literally was putting my socks on. I was on one leg in the kitchen, slipped on the tiles or trying to run to play cricket, put my socks on, and literally I slipped and my body went into complete lockdown mode because I had previous injury of back spasms. So I thought it was going to protect myself again from doing it. So it's gone into a mini spasm. Because of it, I could feel the QL directly on my right side. But the QL was just a symptom of the other issues that was going on. And that was my glutes on my left side and my adductors on my left side, the muscles on the entire side of the leg, the groin area, were extremely tight, right? And as a result, they weren't doing their function properly. They were overworked. This was becoming overworked, and it got grumpy, and it just went ping, right? So when we're looking at getting people out of spasm, most of the time it's the system. Now, using Evo as a great example recently, he came to me the other week and said, hey, Breezy, I've got a really tight back here. I've been to see the physio a few times. It's really tight here. What's going on? Well, I had a look at him, put him on his front, check his internal and external rotation on the opposite side, and guess what? Did not move. Did not move, okay? And that's what we're looking for, is looking at the opposite side glute area complex. It hurt. It was super tight. He's now getting massage to get it fixed. But the point was, where you think the pain is not where the problem is coming from, and we're going to fix it. So the lateral subsystem is a network of muscles that work synergistically together in terms of gait patterns, forces, bowling, running, walking, you name it. It's really, really important. And if the lateral subsystem is dysfunctional, this then impacts forces, or other forces will be transmitted into peripheral joints that may be recruited for stability and becoming overworked. Okay? So in terms of, if you want to know anatomy, it makes up of the glute medius, the TFL, the tensor fasciae latae, the adductor complex, which has multiple adductors in, the magnus, the brevis, the longus, the gracilis, and the pectineus, I think it is. Is that the one?
Pectineus?
I think that way. And then the opposite QL side. So whatever you're looking at, it's the
Mm.
opposite side. Okay, so right QL means you're looking at the left glutes, left TFL, left adductors. If it's the left QL, you're then looking at the right glute med, max, TFL, adductors on the other side. So what do you do? What do you do is the first and most important question.
Well, before we dive into what you do, if people out there are wondering, do they potentially have a problem with the lateral subsystem? You might have, these are some symptoms. You might have knee pain, hip pain, ITB, pain, iliotibial band syndrome that's on the outside of the leg. A lot of runners get that. You might have a pulled groin. You might have plantar fasciitis, sciatica, ankle pain, lower back pain. So there's lots of things going on that might be related to this subsystem.
Absolutely. And guess what you also may be struggling with? Performance on the cricket field. Not being able to rotate properly.
If you've got all those pains, then you probably are.
Exactly. So there's lots of things going on here. It's such an important system. And again, the body works in mysterious ways. We look at sling systems. We look at all sorts of things going on here. Now we'll save them for another podcast and maybe a video to actually showcase it and how the body moves. But in terms of back spasms, the lateral subsystem is where we want to look at first and foremost for the majority of people to begin with before we start to go more specific. Okay, again, this is a very wide, sweeping generalization, but a lot of times the issues come to here. Now, what do you do when you go into spasm? Well, just from my own experience over the years, you go into spasm, the first thing you're going to do is reduce the threat level, which means you're going to take your head closer to the floor. Right? What I mean by that is the brain's a long way from the floor and the software and the hardware are going to talk together. So yes, it's going to be a pain in the ass to get down literally onto the floor, but you get down there, you're going to reduce the threat level, and from there you're going to start moving. Okay? And that means rocking back and forth in quadruped, all fours, with your almost like a squat pattern going back and forth to tell the body it's okay. It's okay. And whilst doing that, we're going to make sure we're breathing. Right? It sounds harder and more simple than it really, but it really is good. We're going to do all this. Once we do that, we've got to start working out, well, what's got into spasm? Normally it's the QL. Right? Now, my professional recommendation is you need to see a very good massage therapist and dry needling specialist as soon as you possibly can, because the fastest way to get out of spasm is by massage and by dry needling. Let's get a dry needle into there and actually just loosen all that up to release all that tension. Whilst doing that, you release the opposite glutes and the opposite adductors and TFL at the same time. You go into that area because they're going to be tight too. They may not be hurting, but they're also going to be tight. So we're releasing those opposite areas. And whilst we release those areas, guess what else we've got to do? We have to activate the other side. So we're going to activate the QL on the other side of where you're going, and activate the adductors on the inside of the opposite leg, and the glute med and glute max as well. So we've got to think about releasing the problem areas, but then activating the opposite side of the things you're releasing. Because if you don't do that, then you're always going to fall back into this trap, because they stopped working for a good reason, because the other side got grumpy and wasn't doing its work properly. That's the easiest way to try and explain it. Yeah. So you want to go in, release it, activate it, release all the things you possible as fast as you can. Me personally, I went in for a massage the day after I went into spasm, had dry needling at the same time. I had another massage 2 days later, and I had another massage 3 days later too. That was 3 intense massages over the course of 3 days. I didn't wait a week between sessions. I went in for an hour and a half, 2 hours to release it all, whilst I'm doing a lot of integration core work back at home myself. So I took a massive week of rehab and training to myself to get this system up and working and fine. So again, you may not think, I haven't got the time to do this. Well, it's a question of, do you want to be in a spasm for months on end? Or do you want to get out of it as fast as you possibly can? And it comes down to the whole point of back spasms being, we've got to release it, the areas that is problematic, find out what those areas are. We've got to activate the muscles that aren't working on the opposite sides. We then got to integrate it into some type of core work in some respects, in how we tie the core, because sometimes the core switches off, which is why the adductors turn on, the hamstrings turn on, this whole complex switches off, right? And then we go locomote, which is just move, right? And if you can only move by rocking back and forth and crawling, well, great, we can do that.
Yep, little
But
baby crawl along the floor, that's easy, that's moving.
Absolutely. So I see so many cricketers who are suffering from back spasms, who can't play, but they're not doing anything about it, or they haven't been shown. They go to the physios, the doctors, and they say, just move. Well, moving is great, but how, why? But I promise you, a huge majority of the cases that we see with athletes and from personal experience is the lateral subsystem of that contralateral QL with glute med.
Which means opposite side.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Using big words now, James.
Using big fancy words to make me sound even more important, like every other SSC in the whole planet. There we go. Well, I do that. And then you add that big group on the opposite side too. Yeah. So again, this is just we're talking about the ideas and the principles today. Yes, I think we may need to do a video. Again, there's another lad called Ben Edkins I know who's got a tight back all the time. I could see him trying to stretch his back out the other week, and it wasn't because he was tight. It was because his muscles just weren't working. Like literally, I took great pleasure in just elbow dropping him into his piriformis, his glute med. So it was quite entertaining. But you've got to think about this, and you can test it easily by testing your internal and external rotation on the opposite leg. You know, lie prone, lie with your face down on the floor, kick your leg up to your heel, to your bum, and try and see if you can drop your legs left and right. That's the best way to look at it. If you can't, you know you've got an issue. But do it without rotating your back and moving your back. Have a steady pelvis.
I think we probably need to do a video on that as well, actually.
I think we do. So we're testing all people coming in. But exactly. Let's just hold it there, unless you have any other questions, Josh, do you think I should talk about?
No, I think that's good. As you say, you know, there's a lot of conditions that it could possibly be linked to the lateral subsystem, so make sure you get in there with a foam roller, and then, as you say, you got to release it all and then activate not just the opposite side, activate both sides, because the reason the muscles might be tight and weak, they might not be doing anything in the first place. So you got to get in there and start doing some sidestepping, step ups, lunges, clamshells, stuff like that. Get the old glutes going.
And I think that's a key point. Well, what activation exercise do you do? Now, I'm a big fan of banded bird dogs. That means getting a band and using the opposite leg. So bird dog is literally opposite leg, opposite arm, going back like this, but having a band to do it, so it integrates the core at the same time. I'm a big fan of doing band around above the knees, glute bridges with single leg to activate the glutes as best as you can. I think it's clamshells. Yeah, particularly with
they'll get your glutes burning. A banded clamshell.
Yeah. So you do that as part of the activation work, particularly on the opposite side when starting work. And if you want to go crazy, you can do Copenhagen planks later on to get the adductors. But simple things like squeezing a ball, like a basketball or something, with your feet to activate the adductors. Because they don't get turned on. They're tight and they're weak for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. That is it for today. Please don't forget to rate, review and subscribe. If you would like our free training plan, then go to cricketmatters.com/train. And remember, our goal is to make you a better cricketer.